You have a legacy which is not good in your role. There's been problems over the past few years, and I think £5 million has been taken out over the last 5 years out of public transport. I want to know if you would agree with one of your predecessors, not your immediate predecessor, but one of your predecessors, when was asked about this situation, said it wasn't his job to help people to get to school or work. Did you agree with him?
Well, no, is the short answer to that. It is our job to enable people to get to school and get to work, absolutely. What I would say on funding, for instance, is that according to data provided by the LGA in 2020 and 2021, Worcestershire spent just over £4 million in support to operators across the county. That was by no means the least of authorities. East Sussex, 2.2 million, Hampshire, 3.18, Hertfordshire, 3.8. So it's not that we are insufficiently invested. Somerset, 2.8, Oxfordshire, 1.7 million, Oxfordshire. So it's not true to say that there is a correlation between the more that you spend as a county council on support to operators, the more people go on the buses. The number of passenger journeys on local buses per head of the population for the same period for Worcestershire is 4.5. For Oxfordshire, it's 16.9, and they spend less as an authority. Some authorities spend a lot more. Essex, for instance, spends 3 times more, £12.5 million on support for operators, yet it's only achieved a figure of 8.4 journeys per head of the population. So there's no correlation that more spending means higher passenger numbers. What we're faced with is the reality of a lower demand environment. And the officer said about 70% of pre-COVID levels. We need the demand for the buses to be there. Now, I believe that the demand for the buses is there, it's just in a different place. Buses historically are predicated on the notion that there's a whole load of people at point A, they want to go to point B at roughly the same time, roughly the same direction. That's how it works, and to get labourers from home to work. That marketplace has fundamentally changed. There's people who brought cars during the pandemic in order to avoid using buses, and that's contributed to that decrease in the numbers. There's people that now work from home predominantly and no longer use public transport. Getting people back on public transport when they make these modal shifts is very, very difficult. Once they go, it's very difficult to get them back. But I do think there is demand there, and one of the public speakers mentioned earlier about going to the swimming baths and the ridiculous notion that you've got to go all the way into the city centre and all the way back out. And that's how networks have traditionally been built. They use this hub and spoke model. The hub is always in the centre and the spokes reach out, and you always have to go via that network approach. And that's how it's been for decades. What we can do is, with demand responsive transport, as we said, is actually be closer to the demand. And enable people to get to swimming pools and local amenities without having to go via the centres. So that's why I think we have to evolve. We have to evolve our offer, because the same way that we have run buses for decades and decades is not in tune with the demands of modern passengers. Just in the same way that viewing habits are no longer in tune with how people watch television. They no longer watch a certain programme at a certain time on a certain evening. They pick up the remote. They no longer consult the timetable for what's on their television. They pick up the remote or they pick up an app. It should be a similar experience of travelling on buses. You can pick up an app, there's a bus. I mean, speak to people of my generation and ask us what number bus serves your area. We wouldn't be able to tell you, because we don't care. We want to be able to turn up at the bus stop, find that, oh, look, there's a bus that's going to be along in 10 minutes. Is that enough? Do I want to wait for that? Do I not want to wait for that? And we make our decisions based on that information. So we've got to provide the information to people at the bus stops, which is all in the BSIP, by the way. We talk about these fantastic new bus stops in the bus service improvement plan that will provide that real-time information and much more as well. And then, of course, there's other discussions to be had about how active travel can fit into that. So the ability to park and lock your bike at a bus stop as well, so that you can join up your journeys and complete the last mile of your journey to work or back home. So a much more mesh-like approach is how we solve this problem long-term in the future. I'm sorry it's a slightly long answer, but hopefully it's comprehensive.
No, and I appreciate your honesty and your openness. But obviously supply and demand and the arguments surrounding it do not necessarily help an argument of a person in St John's who can't go and visit his mother in Malvern on a Sunday because the bus service doesn't run. he's not interested in supply and demand. So is the reality, is the free market the right way to enable a better provision or an improved provision of public transport? Have we got to look at it differently?
Well, I think, if I may, Chair, the question's slightly above my pay grade, because the model was implemented in 1985 with deregulation of bus services, further deregulated with the 2017 Bus Services Act, and that's what we have outside of places like Birmingham and London. We can't have a franchise model as a shire authority. The closest we can get is an enhanced partnership, and that's what we're committed to, which will take much more control about bus services into the hands of the county council through that enhanced partnership. But a key word in there is partnership. We cannot do this without buy-in from the operators. So it's very important that we develop that partnership model as quickly as we can, but as effectively as we can as well. So I accept the premise of your argument that complete deregulation and sort of like a Wild West approach, where you and I could set up Richard's buses tomorrow, and we could lay on a service if we wanted to, safely and conveniently for the passengers. That's great in some regards, but actually it's not in tune with the overarching service that you've got to provide as a county council, as you say, in order to get people to on a Sunday or to work or whatever.